This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew. It's episode 449 of the Craft Beer and Brewing Podcast. I'm Jamie Bogner. My guest today is Christopher Lackner, founder and president of the Hemp Beverage Alliance. Welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks.
It's, I wish we could talk under, different circumstances. This segment of hemp beverages is one that we have been focused on and dipped our toes in over the last year or so, talking to craft brewers who also produce these beverages. We do a beer festival up in Minnesota, the Minnesota Craft Beer Festival, and over the last couple of years of spending time up in Minneapolis, it has been absolutely incredible for us to see just how hemp beverages and hemp-derived cannabis products or hemp-derived THC products, sorry, let me get that absolutely correct. Hemp-derived THC products have grown and expanded and become so available in the state of Minnesota. You can walk into brewery tap rooms and order such beverages off of the menu. You can order gummies of some sorts in a lot of these places as well. It's just, it's just an interesting thing to see all of that kind of ubiquity of these hemp-derived THC products all over the place in Minnesota. And so of course we have been interested because we're also interested in the kinds of beverages that make drinkers excited and want to come out and socialize together in the kinds of spaces that brewers have built. And we think there's a lot of opportunity there. And so of course I went out this summer in July to the Hemp Beverage Expo in Atlanta, Georgia, which is where we met. And since then, some things have happened. This little thing like a bill to get the government reopened, they slid in some legislation in there that kind of changes the current course and creates some interesting challenges for the industry as a whole. We're going to talk though about what that industry means. That kind of trajectory from the initial steps, the initial legislative steps that made hemp-derived THC beverages and products legal. We're going to talk about what that industry has become in the ensuing years, because the size of the industry by some accounts is as large as the entire craft beer industry in terms of dollars right now. In fact, it's really similar number in scale economically to that. We're going to talk about why beverage is a great format for hemp-derived THC. We're going to talk about what intoxication means. I think, in this kind of world where we have had 3.2 beer, which was considered legally non-intoxicating for, through prohibition, and since, and in many, many states, it's only been over the last few years that the 3.2% distinction has even gone away. What that could mean, in a sense, for hemp-derived THC beverages. We're going to talk about what regulation the industry is looking for, because I think you and the Hemp Beverage Alliance are looking at this from a pragmatic standpoint. We want people to be safe. We want producers to make products that people can have trust in. We understand that these products should have age control on them. There are basic tenets that of regulation that you are all in favor of, and that align very nicely culturally with some of the other regulations we have for this kind of thing. We're going to talk about what that is, and then we're going to talk about like a pathway forward given all these challenges. Before we do that, for years, G&D Chillers has chilled the beers you love, partnering with 3,000 plus breweries across the country. They're proud of the cool partnerships they've built, offering 24/7 service and support. They build with non-proprietary parts, expert craftsmanship, and constant innovation. Their in-house engineering crew have been piping breweries, wineries, and distilleries for more than 30 years. They offer free piping design and consultation with the sale of every chiller they build. Reach out for a quote today at gdchillers.com or call to discuss your next project. And Berkeley Yeast just launched Dry Tropics London, their best-selling liquid yeast strain now with all the ease-of-use benefits of dry yeast. Dry Tropics London delivers the soft, pillowy mouthfeel and juicy character you'd expect from a top-tier London ale strain, but with a serious upgrade, a burst of files that unleash vibrant, layered notes of grapefruit and passion fruit. A lot of brewers love the clean passion fruit you get from Tropics, but they don't want every IPA to be a tropical fruit bomb. At the dry yeast price point, you can pitch and ditch without breaking the bank, or you can co-pitch with your house strain to adjust the intensity of the notes. And with nationwide free shipping, there's never been a better time to try Dry Tropics. Order now at berkeleyyeast.com and experience the ease and impact of Dry Tropics London yeast. Also, every beer menu could use a refresh button on the fruit flavors. That's why it's time to revisit Old Orchard's flavored craft juice concentrate blends, where the latest additions include fruit punch, guava, kiwi, and pomegranate. They aren't stopping there and welcome flavor suggestions from the brewing industry. For more information and free samples, they're waiting at oldorchard.com/brewer. That's oldorchard.com/brewer. All right, Chris, let's start with a little bit of history. Why don't you walk us back and paint the picture of how hemp-derived THC beverages became legal in the United States, and then kind of trace that trajectory of growth up to the current time.
Yeah, absolutely. So the brief history of the category is this. In 2018, the Farm Bill was reauthorized, and in that Farm Bill was a new definition of what the hemp plant was. And it said that if a cannabis sativa L plant has 0.3% THC in it by dry weight, 0.3% or less, it is now considered hemp. And if it's 0.3% or above, now that's called marijuana. And so the difference between marijuana and hemp are a policy distinction. I think prior to that, we all used these words interchangeably. Hemp, cannabis, marijuana, devil's lettuce, it didn't matter. It was all one plant. But 2018, it bifurcated this plant into two policy distinguished categories. So now we've got the hemp plant.
And primarily done because there are other industrial uses for hemp separate from the intoxicating properties. And this is some bureaucratic attempt to pull those things apart.
Somebody had to draw the line somewhere. And so that line was put at 0.3%. Yeah. And again, the idea was to free up or to provide the viability of this crop for farmers, many of whom had been farming tobacco in the past and wanted to look to a new crop. The uses for hemp as a plant are many, anything from industrial lubricants to concrete substitutes to you can pull out the cannabinoids to create CBD supplements and tinctures too. You can pull out the small amount of THC and incorporate that into a beverage or a gummy. So what happened is 2018, the bill passes and everybody realizes that the real value of the crop is in the cannabinoids. The infrastructure for hemp fiber is still not there. Hemp concrete is still not an established product. But the real money and the real opportunity is in the cannabinoids, which are those molecules that do this, that, and the other. CBD, cannabidiol, is one of the primary cannabinoids in the marijuana plant or the cannabis plant, as is THC, which I think everybody has a working familiarity with. So first we had the CBD craze where everybody was putting it into everything from tinctures to pillowcases. Quite literally, there was a pillowcase available that had CBD in it, and theoretically, if you slept better on it. That market didn't really do that well because it's just kind of hard to figure out what CBD does, and you need a whole bunch of it for it to do not a lot of stuff. Eventually, folks figured out that we can take small amounts of that THC out of the hemp plant and incorporate it into products such as beverages. And this is really where the category started to take off about 2 or 3 years, about 3 or 4 years ago at this point. So we started seeing states such as Minnesota setting up regulatory frameworks to do this. We've started seeing innovators in the craft brew industry in particular, figuring out ways to incorporate this into beverages. It's a very finicky ingredient, and it requires a lot of work and understanding to make it a viable product in a can. But eventually we got there with new technology, with new emulsification technology, and really a new push of finances into it, because we knew, and it was realized very quickly, that this is going to be a very in-demand product. And so where we are now is hemp beverages, federally legal under the 2018 Farm Bill, are being sold in somewhere around 32, 35 states in some capacity, and certainly online in a lot more places. You'll see in Minnesota, entire liquor stores, aisles will be, it'll be a THC beverage aisle. You're seeing these on menus in stores. There's a AA baseball team in Oregon that is sponsored by a hemp beverage company. And so it has really become another addition to the adult beverage portfolio for bars, restaurants, venues, basically anywhere an adult beverage is now. We're seeing an opportunity for hemp beverages. Except about 60 days ago, the government shut down, and there was a very concerted effort to open it back up. It went on for 44 days or so, and by the time we got to that 44th day, everybody was just like, whatever it takes to open up this government, we need to do it. Now, what happened when that bill package was assembled and passed was that it included a few pages that suddenly, and without discussion and without debate, eliminated the hemp beverage industry and the hemp industry as a whole. It put restrictions on the definitions of what a hemp beverage could be, and more restrictions on hemp products generally, that by most forecasts are going to eliminate 95% of the hemp industry, and certainly all of the hemp beverage industry, for the aforementioned reason that you need your product to do something in order for it to be enjoyed. So where we sit now is that language that was passed in the bill to open up the government has a 1-year implementation period. So, November 13th of 2026, if nothing happens, our category will cease to exist. Now, the upside and the pint glass half full side, which is the hemp beverage side, is that this is a 1-year opportunity to create a regulatory framework that works for everyone. And I think everybody that's in this category thinks very strongly that is the direction this is going. Legislators, God bless them, they had to open up the government. Some of them knew about this language that was in the bill. A lot of them didn't, and probably most of them thought it was for something else. And so we are seeing and hearing from a lot of those legislators on Capitol Hill that are saying we have to fix the problem that we created with the passage of the opening of the government.
It's such an interesting problem politically, right? Because you've got Mitch McConnell, who was a leading force in sliding that language in, who is in direct opposition with Rand Paul, who seemed to be fighting, on behalf of those aforementioned Kentucky former tobacco farmers, who, for whom hemp is actually a significant crop and has a lot of economic power. Arguing within, you have two elected senators from the same state who have very diametrically opposed opinions on this, and Rand Paul was making lots of noise about this, and I should say that this language was brought up on several other bills over the course earlier this year. They tried to slide it in there, to accomplish the same kind of restriction. And of course, we have this also kind of strange overall scenario where we are now growing in order to produce, for this primary goal of creating THC, or growing it in the most inefficient way possible with the lowest concentration, just to get through this kind of legal barrier. And obviously some better legislation about that would fit. But as you also mentioned, there's something interesting in the way that this emulsion technology, which is the same exact emulsion technology that, say, craft brewers are using within terpenes and extracts and hop extracts in order to some of these advanced hop products to achieve that kind of integration in these water-based beverages, and that is the same exact thing that the hemp-based THC world is engaging in. So this technology that we've seen in the brewing world take hold significantly over the last 3 or 4 years also tracks together. The baseline technology is all the same. Pretty cool. Well, I want to talk about what that economic impact looks like in this industry right now and what the stakes are that we're actually talking about. Before we do that, give your customers a pleasant surprise with Audacia in your next IPA. Brought to you by Indie Hops, this descendant of Strata brings her own flair of catchy lilac, lavender aroma, and flavors of sweet tart berries and tangy lychee. Audacia loves family reunions with Strata, and even more fun when Citra, Simcoe Amarillo, and others join the party. Let Audacia loose and watch the smiles spread. Indie Hops, life is short. Let's make it flavorful. And looking for a powerful no-rinse sanitizer that gets the job done fast? Meet SaniClean PAA Pro from 5 Star Chemicals. This EPA-registered PAA-based acid sanitizer is tough on beer stone and perfect for everything from kegs to packaging lines. Available in 2 convenient sizes, it's ideal for coarse sprayers, fermenters, and more. Trusted by pros, designed for performance, SaniClean PAA Pro helps you brew with confidence. Learn more at 5starchemicals.com. Brew better. Brew with 5 Star. Also, this episode is sponsored by PakTech, delivering craft beer multi-packing you can trust. PakTech's handles are made from 100% recycled plastic and are fully recyclable, helping breweries close the loop and advance the circular economy. With a minimalist design, durable functionality you can rely on, and custom color matching, PakTech helps brands stand out while staying sustainable. Trusted by craft brewers nationwide, they offer a smarter, sustainable way to carry your beer. To learn more, visit paktech-opi.com. That's paktech-opi.com. So when we talk about this industry, Chris, what are we talking about in terms of economic scale? It's easy to think, this legislation is going to shut down some products that craft brewers make. It's going to shut down, these folks that are operating like the Wild West, selling these things to kids in Texas. Yada yada. There's all the same kind of fear mongering that we hear about it. And we hear about every product that is aimed towards adults, because no matter what we face here in the United States and in North America, there is an audience that will oppose it on their own moral grounds. But outline for us, like, what are we talking about here in the scope of this industry?
Yeah, and the data is still a little spotty and subject to interpretation, but the hemp industry as a whole is somewhere around $30 billion. So that's nothing to sneeze at. And by some estimates, the hemp beverage industry is on par with the craft beer industry right now. The numbers are still a little soft because data is, it's a brand new industry. Gathering data is sometimes very difficult. But anecdotally, what we can say is that, one of our liquor store partners in Minnesota, 15 to 20% of their sales are hemp beverages. We're hearing that distributors are having upwards on 30% of their sales are hemp beverages right now. And what is really lost, I think, with this challenge that we're facing is the opportunity. This is a brand new industry, all of a couple years old, in a under-regulated category where there's not a lot of knowledge. There is nothing that compares to this. This is not hard seltzer that is, an alcohol in a different form. This is not, wheat toast when we've been all eating white toast. This is a brand new thing. And it has still captured the imagination and the consumer dollars of, millions of adults. So what's at risk is not so much the size of the category now, but what the size of the category could be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. So the stakes are very, very high.
Talking with beer brewers at the Hemp Beverage Expo, it's been incredible to see how impactful some of this has been for their business. I had one brewer tell me that they had been able to add to their multi-state distribution footprint because they had a hemp-based THC. They had a line of those beverages, and that those distributors looking for it was just very efficient for them to take on the beer brand and the THC beverage brand. And in fact, they reported as they were even selling more barrel-aged stout because indirectly, more of these distributors wanted that. And we have seen even major retailers like Total Wine take over, as you say, aisles, end caps, and other kinds of very significant real estate within their stores to add this because, let's be honest, wine is not a growing category right now either. And so there's opportunity here, for it, but there's also opportunity, I think, in the on-premise. In terms of that economic impact, though, it stretches all the way back to the farms, right? This isn't just about, some crafty, beverage producers and what they can sell to consumers, through those kinds of distributors. It also goes all the way back, to those farmers. And then, of course, all the folks that supply, those goods for farming. So the broad economy is a pretty, diverse one and touches a lot of different parts of American society.
No, absolutely. And, you start with that farmer for sure. Having a stable, viable, and profitable crop is a fantastic innovation in American agriculture for sure. But then it goes all the way up the supply chain from there. And I think people forget about this, that when there's a downturn in alcohol consumption, there's a downturn in aluminum can need. There's a downturn in co-packing. There's a downturn in you name it. And this has really filled that gap in a way that no other product has. Our can manufacturers that are in our group are absolutely, a significant portion of their business is hemp beverages. Sure, they're doing alcohol and non-alc as well, but this is the growing category and within their portfolio. We see people that are, buying new equipment, investing in new employees. Hopewell Brewing in Chicago is a great success story, a microbrewery downtown. They hadn't added a new employee for, so many years. They were able to add 2 new employees and do a second production run per day for these hemp beverages. And the other thing that I want to point out, and what you had touched on, is that for craft beer manufacturers, first of all, you have the competitive advantage of already having the infrastructure in place. But the second thing is that this brings the rest of your portfolio to the distributor and to the retailer. It also brings the consumer into places that they ordinarily wouldn't go. And this is a really interesting touch point. There's some data that's suggesting that the folks that are going into liquor stores to buy hemp beverages are first-time consumers at that liquor store. And so maybe they're coming in and picking up, but they might pick up some other stuff along the way. And I think that when you are adding a hemp beverage to your SKU, your line of products, you're not foregoing your craft beer heritage. You are really just adding a cherry on the top or icing on the cake or whatever metaphor you want to use to help get those other products into the store. It's really amazing what this is doing for the existing craft beer industry.
I agree with you on that. And I think the other piece, as a corollary to that, because so much craft beer is focused on-premise taproom consumption, having this category of beverage for those who are not beer consumers or not even alcohol consumers, but that opens up this avenue to have a beverage and be social in this kind of taproom environment, is absolutely crucial in a lot of places now, especially as people's consumption habits around this are changing. And I find that, most of us are not, we love to pigeonhole consumers. We love to think, oh, you are a consumer of this or you're a consumer of that. And the reality is that lots of us are doing lots of things and consuming lots of things. I consume non-alcoholic beers. I consume alcoholic beers. I consume THC beverages. And the use case for each of those depends on where I am. I drink hop waters when I mix those in between things. And so these kinds of things work, they work together, and they can be complementary in terms of that kind of retail approach. But maybe we talk about why, because you are the president and founder of the Hemp Beverage Alliance and not the hemp-derived THC product alliance. What is it in particular about beverage that you think makes a compelling delivery mechanism for this hemp-derived THC versus some other delivery mechanisms that people are comfortable with?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we are intentionally the Hemp Beverage Alliance for a couple of reasons. And the primary one is that beverage is a specific stakeholder group. Our members are sometimes beverage and other product manufacturers, but overwhelmingly, these are folks that are focused on beverage, whether they were former brewers or they're distributors or retailers. But by focusing specifically on beverage, I think we're very focused, and that allows us to move with purpose a lot more effectively. And what we're seeing here is the value of hemp beverages. It really makes sense when you frame it like this. If you go to grandma's for Thanksgiving with a one-hitter, you might be frowned upon. If you bring a 4-pack of hemp beverages, nobody's going to bat an eye. And as much as our society has embraced cannabis sativa L, and we have to a large degree, it does not have the negative stigma that it used to have, there is still and always going to be a little bit of apprehension about the traditional method of consumption via smoking and vaping kind of falls in line with that. By having beverage, it's more social. I don't want to call it more discreet, but it's more acceptable. And the other important thing is that it allows you to manage the way that you consume, right? We don't go out to a bar and do Everclear shots, right? That's the most efficient way to get drunk. But people are like, I want to manage my intake. I'm going to have a light beer, maybe, I'm going to have 2 light beers, or maybe I'm sitting in the back seat of the car. I'm going to have, 2 strong ales. But by having beverages in a container that's got water in it, you are in a better position to manage your consumption, manage your intake, and manage your experience.
That's true, because when you look at other kinds of cannabis delivery methods, that inhalation method puts a lot in your bloodstream really fast. The mechanism that you all have worked out in terms of, or the entire, cannabis industry has worked out in terms of milligrams and dosage, in the way that that's employed in the beverage kind of realm, allows people to kind of understand, if I know that if I, have a, 3 or 5 or 10 milligram consumption, that I have some idea of where my limit is at. And interestingly enough, it tracks really closely. It's a scale that's familiar to people that are even thinking about alcohol by volume, and that I know what a 3% beer is and a 5% beer and a 10% beer, and how I can moderate my own consumption. And so this scale, you find, works in this beverage realm for people to understand what their ultimate limit might be, but also to pace themselves even in getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I just want to reflect back that, sessionability is really a good mantra for craft beer. I mean, we had the big, West Coast IPAs for a while, but, there has been an emphasis on let's have more than one. And I think that that's, what the hemp beverages are really designed for sessionability, more akin to a wine or beer experience. So you could absolutely go smoke a joint and get yourself popped pretty quickly, but that's not the direction that hemp beverages are designed. But in terms of, that calibration, you're absolutely right. So, we look at a serving size, and between, 5 milligrams or 10 milligrams, the HBA recommends a 10 milligram serving size maximum. And that allows for, as you said, that calibration. If you want a stronger product or a weaker product, that's up to you. We do believe that the category is going to move more toward that 5 milligrams as the standard serving size. And people are going to calibrate up or down from that. It might be 10 though, time will tell. But yeah, by looking at a 5 milligram or a 10 milligram, that, I'm good for 1 of those. I'm good for 2 of those. Admittedly, there are several people in our organization that they're good for many of those. That's not me though. I will say that, I kind of fall into that, 15 milligrams over the course of an evening is probably the extent of my interest. And that's great. Other people are like 2 milligrams. Other people are like, 30. But the point is that you want to empower that consumer to know that, all right, this is 10 milligrams is the standard serving size. I'm going to want this after I work out, but I still need to focus on my job afterwards. So I'm going to have a 2.5 milligram. I'm going to my niece's avant-garde art exhibition. My wife is driving. I'm going to have the 10 milligram, It's that kind of you want to empower the consumer to make that wise choice. You don't, and I think you touched on this earlier, consumers are smart people. And consumers know how to read labels. And if they are given the information, they can make smart choices. And that's really what the key is, by having smart labeling, by having a consistent understanding of what a serving size is. This can get insinuated into the adult beverage market just as easily as when hard seltzer did.
Yeah. And again, I think that because the scale of that, it's understandable to people who are, again, used to similar numbers in the kind of alcohol space. And they at least understand they can think about this. We have beers that are 10 and 15% alcohol. We have wine that's, 13, 15% alcohol. We have Sam Adams Utopias, which is, 28 or 29% alcohol in some years. And we understand we drink those in in small quantities in order to, enjoy that in a way that's not going to just completely destroy our livers and everything else.
Right. And then we have Coors Light for when we're done mowing the lawn, And
100%. Yeah. And we've seen that range, in beverages, things like the Float House hemp-derived THC quote-unquote beers. We can't call them beers because they're not actually fermented beer in that sense. But, hitting that kind of, 3 milligram range. And of course, on the high end, I've seen some absolutely crazy products, which brings to question, some sensible regulation has to come in there. But, interesting kind of concentrated spirits equivalent where they're, meant to be more something mixed into a cocktail. So a higher concentration and a lower volume of just as an alcoholic spirit would have a higher concentration, in a 1.5 ounce serving. And so you measure the same milligrams, but in a 1.5 ounce serving instead of, a 12 ounce can, that kind of thing. Like there is some development, and some kind of, feeling out of what this category means and can be, and what some of those kind of main lines are going to be through it. Are there any of those other kinds of emerging kind of lanes that you see these beverages working in?
Yeah, so we're seeing these replicate every existing adult beverage format. So we have the 12 ounce seltzer was probably the first entry. We're seeing these miniatures. We used to call them airplane bottles. Those 2 ounce, which has that high concentration, 5 milligrams in that, which is intended for, as we say, dosing into a club soda or a cocktail. We're seeing 750 milliliter spirit analogs that look just like, a bottle of gin and are supposed to be enjoyed kind of like gin. It's got, some botanicals in it, etc., to incorporate into a non-alcoholic product. We're also seeing wine analogs too. And what's interesting about this is that the suppliers are staying true to the physical format of the alcoholic bottle, right? So a wine bottle and a whiskey bottle are the same volume, but the wine bottle is designed for 5 servings, pouring, for 4.5 or whatever a wine bottle is. And so the dosing is in accordance to as if you were buying a wine. And the same thing with the spirit analogs, that it's, again, supposed to be a higher concentration because you're supposed to be mixing that into a club soda. I don't think anybody is intending to have a 750 milliliter spirit analog designed to be chugged by somebody, just like a 750 milliliter bottle of Jack Daniels is not designed to be chugged. Now, some goofball is going to do it, and we can do all we can to stop that from happening. But I think that one of the smart things that the industry has done is taken a page or used the existing adult beverage form factors or designs and then made analogous products for it so that the switch isn't that difficult.
Sure. And the physical outcome of consuming an entire 750 milliliter bottle of THC product is going to be a little better potentially than if one were to consume that entire bottle of alcohol.
I do not recommend either. I want to make that clear.
Yes, do not do either. But no, we actually have a couple of bottles of these spirit analogs in the office fridge that we're continue to explore the category, and it's interesting to see how those go, how those develop. And I think that on the other side of it, because again, this is largely, there are states with solid, smart regulatory approaches. There are other states where it has just kind of slid in as federally legal without a regulatory approach. There is a very, very wide range of products out there. We have seen some that are definitely pushing, say some of the legality that would be allowed within the alcoholic space, those that combine caffeine as well as THC. This is part of the kind of feeling things out and figuring out where things land. It's part of the reason why the consumers need some regulation and the industry wants some regulation in order to, because as we all know, we can consider in some cases government regulation, excessive regulation to be a deep negative, but at a baseline level, regulation, the fact that government, is making sure that there are things like standards for food safety that, meat packers adhere to, and that, creating that kind of baseline of regulation helps consumers build trust in an industry. And especially something new and developing like this can benefit from some of that trust, and the growth can happen because there is a platform of trust. So I want to talk about, some of that regulatory challenge, but then also some of that regulatory opportunity, what the hemp beverage industry as a whole is looking for, and what that kind of smart regulation is going to look like, or what would be ideal for helping that growth, helping make sure that products are safe and that they behave as people expect. Before we do that, when it comes to packaging your brew, think Heartprint, the original and digital can printing. With 3 locations across North America, the Heartprint team has your back from concept to can. Count on fast turnarounds, no minimums, graphic design support, and rock-solid can quality, all in 100% infinitely recyclable cans. Get 10% off your first can order when you mention the Craft Beer and Brewing Podcast. Open an account at heartprint.com or email info@heartprint, that's HART, print.com for more details. And Brightly Software, a Siemens company, partners with organizations at every stage of their asset lifecycle journey. Brightly is a complete asset management and operations software that enhances organizational sustainability, compliance, and efficiency through data-driven decision-making. Streamline maintenance, simplify capital planning, and optimize resources with solutions uniquely designed to support long-term goals. Learn more at brightlysoftware.com. Also, here is a toast worth raising your glass to. Back in 2016, UNESCO gave Belgian beer culture a huge shout out, naming it an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Fast forward to 2026 and Visit Flanders is celebrating 10 years of that honor. A whole decade of raising glasses to the creativity, craftsmanship, and community that make Belgian beer legendary. Now, Flanders might be small, but when it comes to beer, it's a giant. You can find over 3,000 unique beers, from classic Trappist ales to funky new experiments. If you love beer, Belgium's got something with your name on it. Come to Flanders in 2026 to celebrate the 10th anniversary of UNESCO recognition and drink in the Belgian beer culture. All right, Chris, regulation is something that most people don't love talking about. It can be a pain in the ass, but in this case, it should be said that the Hemp Beverage Alliance and all the producers that support it strongly believe in regulation, sensible regulation that balances consumer accessibility with product safety and integrity, and age gating and all the other things. Outline for what you see as some of the challenges of regulation, and what kind of regulation you believe needs to be in place for this category to truly thrive.
Yeah, so first of all, the Hemp Beverage Alliance absolutely supports smart regulations that protect consumers, ensure product integrity, and empower consumers to make smart choices. That goes without saying. The basics that you're talking about, making sure these products are age-gated because they have the potential to intoxicate making sure that the labels are accurate and what is said on the label is actually inside the can. Making sure that we're not marketing toward children, and making sure that these products are tested to make sure that there are no contaminants in them and that the milligram counts are accurate, etc. Now, this is table stakes for the craft beer industry, but you've been around for a lot longer than we have. This is a brand new industry from scratch, and so what we're asking for, I don't think is anything really out of the ordinary. It's something that allows our industry to grow. And again, it creates that consumer confidence. We also, we're one of the few organizations that feel that we should be taxed. We think a reasonable taxation system that allows for states to create regulatory frameworks and monitor it, because a regulation that isn't enforced isn't really a regulation. So we want to make sure that we are good actors and that our products are on the shelves right next to other products, and we want to be able to stand by everything. We want to make sure that the reputations of the people that are selling and distributing our products are bolstered. And that only comes with having a regulatory framework that we all are playing by. It only takes, a couple of goofballs to ruin it for everybody. And having some good, solid regulations are going to help get those folks out of the industry. Now, I will say, the regulations as they currently stand, they vary from state to state. Minnesota has one set of regulations that's different than what you'll see in Tennessee. It's different than you'll see in Washington and different than you'll see in Louisiana. And that's okay. We see this with beer or, with alcohol as well. The federal government has a general oversight via the TTB. But then, the legislation and the rules as they relate to alcohol largely fall to the states and even farther down to the community level. And we see this as no different. There's no reason why, we can play by those rules as well. But we do need those base level of rules that everybody's following.
Sure. And the fact that this kind of, federal challenge to this and then puts into question some of the state level regulation, but also kind of, doesn't allow within some certain states to build their own regulatory structure around that, just means that it's difficult for both consumers to understand. Like, you can go to a big box store or even a grocery store in some states and find these beverages out in the coolers or on an end cap there. But then you come to a state like Colorado, these are still wrapped up into the dispensary kind of legislative or regulatory model. And so you would have to go to a dispensary, and California, I believe, is similar, where you'd have to go to one of these existing, dispensaries in order to purchase this. And so those are very different kind of consumer modes to operate within.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the big challenge. Hemp beverages do not do well in dispensaries, and they do not do well for a variety of reasons. But the first reason is this. Imagine a situation in which you're going to a party and you're going to pick up your craft beer, but your college, legal drinking age college niece is back for the holidays, and so you need to pick up some hard seltzer for her. Now imagine if you have to go to a different store just to get the hard seltzer, and you have to show your ID and you have to pay cash, and you can only buy 4 of them, and then you walk out, and that's how you get your hard seltzer. I'll tell you one thing: your niece isn't going to get hard seltzer at the party if that happens. And that's the same thing with hemp beverages. These are adult beverages that are sessionable, that are federally legal, that deserve to be at the places where consumers are already shopping for adult beverages. The liquor store team knows how to age gate. They know how to make recommendations. And this is a very important thing. When you go to a dispensary, you're going for a different experience. You're going for $1 per milligram equation oftentimes. And then functionally, you just can't stock beverages in a dispensary. There's just not enough room. We are a velocity industry. On game day, you go into a liquor store on a Sunday and they're, stacked high and you're watching them fly. There isn't room in a dispensary for these. There certainly isn't room in the safe in the back door, in the back, for them to be stored at night. But more importantly, and most importantly, is there just isn't a demand. The consumer for hemp beverages is not necessarily a dispensary consumer. We're not pulling people away from dispensaries. We are providing an adult beverage option for folks that are looking for an adult beverage option. They may never go to a dispensary. They may not know where a dispensary is. But I can tell you that they're not going to be taking that extra trip.
And again, this patchwork of regulation, even within alcohol, can be challenging to navigate. There are states where I can go into a convenience store and buy a bottle of liquor. There are some of those states where I can go to a grocery store and buy beer and wine, but I have to go to a different retailer in order to buy hard spirits, like here in Colorado. Having these kinds of things pull apart, this idea of low concentration available commonly in grocery stores and more common retail environments, and the highest strength versions of those available only through specialty retailers. That divide does exist many places, and within the alcohol kind of space, I think we understand how that can work in that scenario. And there are especially consumers that want the product to load into their dab rig and go do their thing, and
But
more
that
power
ain't
to
us.
them. That is not no. This is not what we were talking about here with these lower milligram consumption. And
Right.
you're right. I think
But to your point about Colorado, for sure. So in Colorado, we can get beer and wine at grocery and other places, but to get spirits, you need to go to a liquor store proper. Now, there's no reason why we can't have hemp beverages at grocery and liquor, and then the harder stuff goes in the dispensary. I think that's a perfectly viable model.
Yeah. And I think the other interesting thing is this ubiquity of it. For many cases, certain moralists have made the argument that marijuana, cannabis is a gateway drug. But the reality is that when it's available and commonly available, it's not a gateway to anything. It's simply this thing that, adults can choose to use. And so there is a positive kind of element to having this kind of availability, demystifies and, kind of takes away some of the negative power that some people have ascribed to this entire, cannabis thing, for so many years. Let's kind of talk about, what the path forward looks like now. With this bill reopening the government and that language that now sets a clock on this federal legalization, and I should say it does not make it completely illegal. It simply sets a 0.3 milligram limit on those beverages, which it seems like an unreasonable, and so where you have, it doesn't even go into ban per se. It simply just moves this bureaucratic arbitrary point from something in a more reasonable place to something that will actually ultimately kill the entire category. But talk about what that would mean, what that current language, and how the industry is looking at how to move forward over this next year.
Yeah, and if you take a look at the legislation, you'll see that it is very hastily crafted and with a specific end game, which is to destroy this category. It does establish a 0.4 milligram per serving or per 12 ounce can category, but I mean that's kind of the equivalent of saying, we can have all the craft beer you want, it just has to be 0.05, right? You're like, okay, some people will drink it, but not a lot of people, right? So the legislation as it stands allows for a 1-year implementation period. So it's not a full stop ban. So the beverages you're enjoying today are the same beverages you'll enjoy next week and next month and throughout next year as well. Rather than take this as a wind down period, I think everybody in the industry is taking this as we have a 1-year opportunity to get a federal regulatory framework that works. And I've been on the call, I just finished a call before this podcast, and I've got other calls set up after this with a lot of big people in the hemp industry, but even bigger people in the adult beverage industry that are very interested in getting a regulatory framework for these products. We're talking to legislators that have, in Minnesota in particular, but across the country, that know the value of these products in terms of an economic boost, in terms of a job creator, and also in terms of how it's not a catastrophic public health situation. The one thing that you need to do is you go to Minnesota and it's no big deal. It is just another product on the shelf. It's just another product on the menu that is responsibly enjoyed by adults. And people just move on with their lives. We had a symposium last year in Minnesota, and some of the not the elected officials, but the regulators did some keynote speeches for us. And they're like, we don't understand why other states just don't regulate this and move on, because it is just been insinuated into the fabric of adult enjoyment really without incident. And so I think by putting together a regulatory framework in the next 12 months, which is absolutely doable, I think we're going to be able to push back against this ban and get regulations in place that work. The interesting thing, and we all know this about our government and presumably every government, nobody does anything until there's a deadline. And now we have a deadline, and I think that folks are really going to rise to the challenge and make it happen.
And we should say that when you look at the public polling on this, on the issue of, cannabis, marijuana in general, THC, like the numbers in favor of it amongst the American population are overwhelming. I think, at least 60% favor full legalization, and then another 30% favor at least medical legalization. And so you look at that, and that's 90% of the American population that supports legalization, regulation in one form or another. And that suggests that this, and when I look at the state of Colorado, where we created a legalized structure for cannabis many years ago now, it passed with bipartisan support. So this is not an issue that is stuck in either political party. It really spans the political spectrum. And like I said earlier, you can see that within the two senators from the state of Kentucky, who are both Republicans and yet have very different viewpoints. One pro and one against. On this. Again, though it's not like this is just a single party issue there. Culturally speaking, cannabis consumers span the entire political spectrum. Those that grow cannabis or grow hemp in this case span the entire political spectrum, and so you see a lot of broad-based buy-in. Again, that's separate and apart from the kind of political affiliation.
Yeah, and this is still a new category. I have some sympathy. Society nobody ever reacts with, oh, here's something I've never seen before, I love it. If you look at Uber and rideshare, for instance, when that came onto the scene, basically they were saying, we have a regulated taxi cab industry where all the taxi drivers are licensed. How about we just have random people pick you up instead? And there was a lot of pushback, and there was a lot of, they're going to murder us. And there was a lot of, challenges and bumps on the road. And I think now if you did some polling on the taxi and rideshare, it's probably recognized as safer than taxi cabs. So there's a little bit of perception, there's a little bit of newness, and there's a little bit of just getting an understanding as to what this really means. And I think that, going to Minnesota is really what demonstrates what it means. And what it means is no big deal. And I think this is the big takeaway, that it's like, yeah, this is just another beverage on a portfolio of adult beverages that people are gravitating for, that they're enjoying, that they're willing to pay for. And, I can go into the myriad benefits of these hemp beverages, if you'll allow me and indulge me. We had 600 people at a all-you-can-drink festival up in Minnesota last year. 600 people or so. 4 hours, all you can drink for $30 or whatever it was. As the afternoon wore on, it got quieter. When the show was over, the event was over, everyone just left. There were no fights. There was no, hey, I want to stay. Everyone just left politely. The place was cleaner than it was when we opened it. So apparently, if anything, these drinks make you a tidier person. We had 2 security guards and 1 EMT. The EMT just checked his phone the whole day, had no incidents. The security guards just ate sandwiches. We gave away 1 Band-Aid, and that was to a person that had a scrape before they got into the venue. The only thing that was dramatically different was that the lady that had the beignet food truck right outside the exit left with a very, very big smile on her face. And
For
so
sure.
we've seen this anecdotally in bars that are serving these products where bartenders actually like these because it does chill people. It does, it's a drink of moderation, and it's a drink that, is enjoyed in such a way. As I said, these people aren't just walking around like zombies. You're drinking them to the level that you want to enjoy them, and then you stop drinking them. And so there are a lot of, really good stories out there about these products. And to your point, and I want to circle back to what you were saying at the very top of the hour here, everybody deserves a bar stool. Bob Galligan from the Minnesota Craft Brewers Guild always says that everybody deserves a bar stool, whether that's an alcoholic drink, a non-alcoholic drink, a THC drink. We want to bring people back into the bars, back into community, back into conversation. That has repercussions that go beyond bottom lines for craft brewers. That has implications for society. The more that we can get together and talk and hear opposing views and have spirited debates and third spaces that we all feel safe and comfortable in, the better off we are as a society. This brings a whole bunch of people into the brewery that ordinarily wouldn't be there.
100% agree with you. And I think we need to, use all of these beverages geared towards socialization out in a public space and keep breaking people out of the tighter and tighter digital bubbles that we have built for ourselves, or I should say that a tech industry that loves our attention has built for us and built in such an addictive way. But let's zoom out here and close with the idea of what can people do? What are the next steps that people in the craft beverage industry, the craft brewing industry, consumers that are motivated, what can we do to help over this next year with this clock ticking, make sure that we don't end up with a federal regulation that just completely decimates the economy that is built up around this, as well as the opportunities, the craft brewers, the investment that beverage makers have made in these, and most importantly, the joy and experience that so many consumers have come to rely on. What can people do from here, Chris?
Yeah. So first and foremost, for the craft brewers that are listening out here, talk to your guild. Talk to your state guild, see if they are involved, and see if you can get more involved with your guild to help push this forward in your state and on the federal level. If your guild is not involved, or if you want to get more involved, consider joining the Hemp Beverage Alliance, hemp-beveragealliance.org. You can even just sign up for our mailing list to get more information. If you don't want to write us a check, just shoot us an email even, and we'll help you out best you can if you're interested in getting involved in the production or the advocacy for this category. For consumers, this is the hard part. The biggest thing you can do right now is go buy yourself a hemp beverage. These are delightful products. For those who haven't had them before, start low, go slow. But dip into this category and see if it's something that you like, and talk to your retailers about stocking them. If you really want to be an advocate, and we have plenty of consumers who want to do that, talk to anybody that is an elected official that you are, whether it's your mayor, your state representative, your governor, your president, depending on how much access you have. Tell them that you enjoy these products and you want to keep them around. That's really the long and the short of it. The category is booming, is moving. There's a lot of smart actors in this, but we need everybody pushing and doing the right thing. And every little bit helps. I cannot stress the importance of getting involved at the big advocacy level, but even those little advocacy things, as simple as just buying a product and maybe posting on Instagram how you enjoy them, can go a long way toward moving the needle.
We've seen how federal bans on things like TikTok the goalposts have moved. And, and I think in this case, we can maybe, potentially there's a solution that does not result in an outright ban. There is sensible regulation, and there is access that consumers want to this product category. And, and I think that wrapping that into this craft beverage space with thoughtful consumption is absolutely the perfect place for it to land. and that is a great place to bring this to a close. With G&D Chillers 24/7 service and support, your brewery will never stop. Berkeley Yeast's Dry Tropics London offers their best-selling liquid yeast strain with the ease of use of dry yeast. Hit the refresh button on your fruit flavors with the latest additions from Old Orchard. Give your customers a pleasant surprise with Audacia from Indie Hops in your next IPA. Santa Clean PAA Pro from 5 Star Chemicals is tough on beer stone and perfect for everything from kegs to packaging lines. Pactex handles are made from 100% recycled plastic and are fully recyclable. Heart Print has your back from concept to can with fast turnarounds and no minimums. Brightly software enhances your data-driven decision-making. And come to Flanders in 2026 to celebrate the 10th anniversary of UNESCO recognition. If you enjoyed this podcast, go to beerandbrewing.com, click on that subscribe button. Chris, if people want to learn more about the Hemp Beverage Alliance or get involved, where do they find you all out there on social media or in real life or in any of those other things?
Yeah, so social media, just look up Hemp Beverage Alliance, depending on what platform you're on. I'm sure it'll pop up. hemp-beveragealliance.org is our website. info@hemp-beveragealliance.org is our general email. Go check out the website. Our regulatory principles are there, what we stand for and what we think are good regulations, the list of our members. And obviously, if you're in the industry and want to get more involved in the production of those, just shoot us a note and we'd be happy to help you get started.
There are, by many accounts, hundreds and hundreds of craft brewers already in this space operating and connected to it. And so it's an issue that is of vital interest to us because it's a vital interest to so many craft brewers, and we are on top of it and paying attention to it. Anyway, Chris, I appreciate you sharing your perspective with all of us out here. Best of luck in the work ahead over this coming year to make sure that we have a sensible regulation and not a blunt force tool that just destroys so much in its wake. Oh, I'm going to editorialize too much. All right. Anyway, great talking with you. Cheers.
Thanks for spreading the word.
This podcast has been brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those who love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media @craftbeerbrew.